Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, a huge announcement on the future of Disney parks around the world, with even more news about Disneyland Forward.
Turning red could be coming to the parks. Magic Happens going away soon. We talk about the Dreaming Tree Gala and more. DL Weekly starts now.
This is your captain speaking to you from the wheelhouse. I'd like to welcome all of you aboard the DL Weekly podcast. For safe passage on our trip, please do not sit or climb on the outside railings. And be sure to watch your children. The water can be unpredictable in these parts, and we'd sure hate to lose any of you.
Hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of September 20th, 2023. I'm Teresa Urban.
And I'm Tag Bushman. We'd like to send a shout out and a big thank you to all of our current weekly tiers, including Cheryl P., Kyle W., Chris S., and Josh S. for supporting the show. Without your support, DL Weekly would not be possible. Your support ensures that the podcast will continue, that we can make it to the parks more often to bring you the latest news and information directly from the parks. If you would like to become an official weekly tier, head on over to dlweekly.net/support to sign up.
Well, you have heard us talk about our great experiences staying at the Howard Johnson in Anaheim. Well, we have partnered with them to offer our listeners some very cool discounts. Weekly tiers can get 15% off their stay, and Magic Keyholder weekly tiers can get 20% off. To take advantage of these discounts, head on over to dlweekly.net and click on the Howard Johnson logo. Be sure to use the promo codes on the site to get the discount that you qualify for.
Well, it's that time again for our friend Eric over at Concierge to catch us up on other Disney news.
Hello everyone, this is Eric Johnson with Concierge and welcome to the D180. While Teg and Teresa cover all things Disneyland, in the D180 we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. We start our adventure this week in the Meyer-Werft shipyard of Papenburg, Germany, where work continues on the Disney Treasure, the Disney Cruise Line's newest ship. Disney released a huge batch of details about the new ship over the past few days, and we can't wait to share them with you. For the most part, the ship's layout resembles the Disney Wish, its most recent ship to hit the waves. Rather than recreate the same offerings, though, Disney as Imagineers created a wholly different experience more in line with the ship's name, Treasure, and they came up with some really interesting ways to tie the ship back to Disney's most iconic theme park attractions. Walt Disney World fans of a certain age likely remember the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea attraction, a somewhat similar attraction to the original Tomorrowland subs. Disneyland fans of a somewhat older age might remember a 20,000 Leagues walk-through exhibit right there in their park too. I'm looking forward to the Periscope pub on the Treasure. The designs of this new lounge experience point back to these classic attractions and the commanding performances of Kirk Douglas and James Mason from the original Disney film. Drinks selections will be tailored to the exotic undersea destinations visited in the film. You will find details around the room in books, charts, and even geographic coordinates on instruments all around. Also, there's a giant squid as part of the decor. I might spend an entire cruise in this room. Another major onboard destination is the Skipper Society. This lounge gives tribute to the Jungle Cruise attractions across the world and their destinations also across the world. Lush plant life throughout simulates the same river locations you visit on every Jungle Cruise. Architectural features around the room specifically invoke the Magic Kingdom's departure and arrival building that has greeted guests since 1971. Enjoy crafted cocktails in small plates with ingredients gathered by skippers on their lengthy sojourns through dangerous waters. The music throughout will take you back to their adventures. Snippets of skipper spiel in multiple languages ensure that you'll be picking up your translator app to maybe get in on those jokes too. Take a brief trip through your imagination to a location that most of us are unlikely to see outside video tours of the ship. In the Tomorrow Tower Suite, Imagineers created a tribute to the Epcot of yesterday and tomorrow. Figment, that delightful sprite, is hiding around the suite in multiple clever locations. When you enter the suite, the grand staircase around the center of the room lights up with lighting and musical effects in a tribute to Spaceship Earth, the icon of Epcot. I'm looking forward to, seeing videos of this someday, unless there's a generous listener who's very partial to these ads. Huh? If you want to join in on the maiden voyage of the Disney Treasure, you'll have to act fast. Sales for the general public go live on September 20th. There's a ton of excitement about this new ship. Considering there can be only one maiden voyage, and this one is 7 nights long, you might want to save up for a later trip. Our concierge planners can help you find the right trip for you and your money and time budgets. Those who prefer to stay on land will find some major savings all the way through March of 2024. Book a Walt Disney World trip and get yourself some Disney dining credits worth up to $1,000 depending on the length of your trip and your pick of resort hotel. It's a great way to enjoy all the delicious dining in the parks without having to fork out too much between your room and park tickets. Give us a call and we will step you through all of those details. And that's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the rest of the Disney universe. If you would like to learn more about these Disney adventures or just have a few questions, please come on over. Visit the social media and websites of both DL Weekly and us, their official travel planners, concierges. We look forward to planning something special for you and yours. I'm Eric Johnson, and this has been your D180.
Thanks, Eric. Now let's get to the news.
In a bombshell announcement before Investor Day for the Walt Disney Company, Disney announced that they plan to spend nearly $60 billion over the next 10 years to expand the parks and cruise lines around the world. They stated in the filing that they have over 1,000 acres of land that they can use for possible development, the equivalent of 7 new Disneyland parks.
So I was at work today, and I went in to start looking at stuff for the script, and this popped up, and I was like, $60 billion.
Yeah.
What is going on? And they have all of these, like a PowerPoint presentation kind of thing with a bunch of charts and graphs.
I feel like that we've seen that chart before, like strong results from the investments. I feel like that chart to me looks very familiar. For some reason, I remember seeing this for some presentation that they did, and I thought it was really interesting. We have a link in the show notes, of course, of this chart, but to just kind of explain it quick, is it has fiscal years, and there, of course, it's a graph, but they also pinpointed on there different things that happen. So like opening of Cars Land or Pandora or Expedition Everest, Runaway Railway, all those sort of things, and it shows when those things opened versus what the trending numbers were for the parks.
Yeah. So one of the things that they saw from 2012 to now is that they increased investment in the parks 3 times during that period, like 3 times more than what they had before, but the operating income increased 4 times. So they invested, let's say, $3, and for every $3 they invested, they got $4 back, is how I'm kind of reading that. So they see that it's a great thing to do. Mm-hmm. Some of the other things they highlighted was some stuff with Duffy and Friends. They talked about the fact that they had great sales for the villas at Disneyland Hotel. They talked about the DVC tower coming to the Polynesian. And so just a ton of stuff.
This was interesting, though, because the Disney Vacation Club, when those new, for Disney, it's a double-digit return on investment. And the new villas at the Disneyland Hotel resulted in DVC's biggest ever sales day. I mean, I'll be honest, knowing that I could have Disneyland as my home park for DVC made DVC that much more appealing to me. I was like, ooh.
Well, they had some DVC stuff at the Grand Californian.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm not as drawn to the Grand as I am to the Disneyland Hotel.
Sure.
So it made it, it was just much more, like, I know this is going to sound really bad, and I apologize to all DVC members that have their home as the Grand, or if your favorite is the Grand. But, like, I just, like, because I don't know, I just would always forget about it because I just really like, I don't know, like I forgot that there was DVC stuff there for some reason.
How do you feel about this? Are you optimistic or?
I'm hopeful. This makes me really, really happy because it seems like finally, Disney is recognizing, hey, the parks make us an awful lot of money. Perhaps we should start reinvesting in the parks. But not only reinvesting, expanding too, which I think is overdue. Now, the tag's got the graphic up, and I wanted to talk about this too. Did you notice that the 1,000 plus acres of land possible for future development has little dots in places that there are not currently Disney parks? Because that could be things like cruise line ports or whatnot. But still, it was really interesting to see it all laid out on a map.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that they in their own words said the equivalent about 7 new Disneyland parks to be able to expand. That is crazy.
That's huge.
The Mice Chat article we have linked that kind of talks a little bit about this. I was reading some of the comments because they had the Investor Day presentation later, and I haven't seen a lot come from that, but there were some people in the comments that had seen it or whatever and had talked about it. And they were talking about how, like, they're obviously not going to do this, but with that $60 billion, they have enough money, they guessed, that they could, like, flatten the entire Disneyland resort and rebuild a whole new resort and still have money left over, which is, like, so, like, insane.
Just to give you an idea of what $60 billion is, because didn't you say, too, that somebody mentioned that they were comparing Disney to Universal, who is definitely their top competition right now, and how Universal is only putting, what was it, $8 billion?
So they have $5 billion that they're spending on Epic Universe, their new theme park in Florida, and then they've committed to spending $3 billion on the Universal Studios Hollywood, which some of that's already spent because of Nintendo Land and all of that stuff. So total, Universal is planning on spending with these two projects $8 billion, and here comes Disney rolling in and going, well, we're going to spend $60. But it's not just the parks. It's also the cruise line. It's not just one resort. It's all of their resorts. So there's a lot of different things that could happen here.
They did also say something about how new things would be probably more IP driven, which for the most part we have seen. The one that stands out to me that isn't specific IP driven is that we actually removed IP from the Disneyland Treehouse. But yeah, then that's something that we've been seeing for quite a while now, that it's very IP focused and not a lot of original stories for attractions.
Yeah. I also want to say something that's come up through all of this and even some of the DisneylandForward stuff that we'll talk about in a minute. And even I find myself having this problem is I keep thinking that Disney's not investing a lot in building new things at the parks. But then I just thought about the things that have opened in the last few years.
Oh, yeah.
We have the Tron, and just between Disney World and Disneyland, let's talk about it. We've got the Tron coaster. We've got Guardians Cosmic Rewind. Mm-hmm. They've got Ratatouille opened not too long ago. They've done some new shows and stuff out there. At Disneyland, we've gotten Galaxy's Edge. We've gotten
multiple new fireworks
shows, a new parade, well, a returning parade, but kind of a new parade, and then a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about in a minute too with DisneylandForward. But that's actually kind of a lot in a little bit of time. Right. So I guess sometimes I think that, like, well, they should be doing more, but like they actually have been building quite a bit. Avengers Campus, I totally forgot about that.
The other thing too to kind of note is Disneyland's probably a very unique thing to try and maintain because it is such an old park.
Yeah.
Like, think of Fantasyland. Those buildings have been around. Like, some of these attractions have been around since the beginning. So not only do we have to have money to build new stuff, they also are probably investing a lot in existing things to help with functionality. Because, technology changes. Always changing. And there's always going to be something better. The other thing, too, is like codes, OSHA standards, all that stuff changes with time as well.
You own a house. You know how much it costs just to maintain stuff like plumbing and all that.
What they used to be able to probably do to maintain things back in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, or even like 20 years ago, I'm sure is not up to code or standards now. Right. And it's, safety violation type things.
Sure.
Which is good. We like safety. But so that stuff takes time. That also takes money. But yeah, anyways, very, very exciting because 1,000 acres with a huge budget means lots of cool things could very well be on the horizon. So, but the only thing that we always have to keep in mind is it's not, as much as we love Disneyland, and this is a Disneyland themed podcast, $60 billion is not going just in Disneyland.
That'd be insane.
However, we do have some updates on what is happening with progress at Disneyland.
Yeah, some of that money is definitely going to go to something. Well, some new information has come out regarding DisneylandForward. The city of Anaheim released the environmental impact report for the proposed changes. This document has a host of possibilities discussed, such as new attractions, new modes of guest transport around the resort, and potential layout of the new theme park and shopping areas.
This DisneylandForward is going to be a slow burn process and project for us Disney fans because it's taking a lot of time to kind of set it up, and then it's going to take a lot of time for them to build whatever it is. But for those of you that need a refresh as to what DisneylandForward is basically in the stage right now that Disneyland's going to Anaheim and the city of Anaheim, as well as the neighbors of the park, and they're trying to get areas rezoned. So things that were zoned to only be parking lots or hotel spaces or dining and restaurant spaces, they're asking for more flexibility with the zoning so that they can use space that they currently have in different ways, which could include expanding the theme parks, adding a third park. There's a entertainment district that they've also talked about too. Lots of different things on the horizon for this, but where they are now is kind of talking about, like Tag mentioned, the environmental impact. When I first heard that, I'm thinking greenhouse gases and stuff like that.
Oh, I'm thinking drainage and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. It's also talking about noise pollution, though. So they kind of map out, and it's really interesting because they have a current map of Disneyland and DCA now, and it has highlighted what area, the louder areas versus the quieter areas. I did chuckle. Did you notice one of the loudest areas is?
I was just going to mention that. I'm glad you brought this up because one of the loudest areas in the resort, from attractions, is Autopia.
Yeah.
Which,
Autopia is the same level as the Incredicoaster. I just find that
it's true that
hilarious.
It's very loud. What I find interesting, though,
the monorail's quiet. The monorail is in blue.
The area over by the parking structure is very, very quiet, and of course, the area around the Grand Californian is very quiet. And actually, if you look at the two maps, Disneyland versus DCA, DCA is actually a quieter park, which I think that makes sense because you got a lot of things that absorb sound here in the Grizzly Peak area.
Yeah. Yeah, but I just thought that was Autopia just killed me. One thing that I'm really excited about is they did also talk about, again, with the environment that I wouldn't have thought went along with this stuff, but does, is they would be building stuff in 360. So what that means is think of the Matterhorn, how it doesn't matter which angle you look at the Matterhorn, it looks like it's complete, versus Galaxy's Edge that has mountains on sticks, and the backside of Radiator Springs, how it's the facade's not continuous. So it's kind of an eyesore outside of the park versus how beautiful it is inside the park. But they did mention that locals say the Matterhorn's kind of how do I want to say it? Something that locals are proud of, and it's kind of a quote unquote landmark for Anaheim because it's really cool and it's really fun to spot it outside of the park. Versus nobody's excited for the backside of Cadillac Range because it's just meshing and paint. So I thought I liked that because then if it's going to be something that's closer to where people are living, if I was someone living there, I wouldn't want to be staring at the backside of unfinished show buildings and stuff.
Well, you get that a little bit with Galaxy's Edge too, where the stuff looks like it's on sticks.
Yep.
So one of the things that people pointed out that is crazy is they do have some things labeled, nothing specific, this is going to be the Incredicoaster, but there's things that are thrill ride or family ride, indoor, outdoor, etc.
It also shows the noise stuff, which as we can then look at Disneyland and DCA, we can kind of get an idea of what things could be in that noise level or could not be in that noise level. So if you're seeing a lot of blue, that means there's not very much noise. So that might be more shopping and dining versus when you start getting into the yellows and definitely the reds. Those are, I would say, fair to say those are attractions of some sort, whether there's shows or rides.
I'm intrigued because two of these things, one thing in the far south end looks like a mountain of some sort.
Yes.
And something in the top section looks also kind of like that. So I'm interested to see what these things, what they have in mind.
What is this?
They haven't said what they are, but it's just kind of interesting to kind of see that. So lots of fun stuff coming. I'm excited to see how this comes. One of the other things I wanted to point out was inside the document, which you can, in the link in our show notes, they have the whole thing. It is quite long. But one of the things they have in there is talking about how to move people around the resort. And when you look at it, they've put in Disney has put in some photos of different ways we could do it. And they put in
examples.
They put in the Skyway, or I'm sorry, the Skyliner. And they put in a picture of the People Mover.
They did.
And they also talked about maybe doing something in the text. They didn't put a picture, but in the text they said something about monorails being redirected to be able to do some of this stuff. And I was like, oh, my heart went pitter-patter. And now that they've talked about $60 billion, I'm like, well, maybe they have the money for it now.
It could happen. That could be in the budget.
So I'm very excited for all that because I've wanted them to expand the monorail forever. the fact that there's a possibility that they might do something with a people mover, it just gets me very excited.
Well, Disneyland has put out a casting call for people who match the description of Turning Red lookalikes. Characters from the movie include the members of the boy band Four Town, Malin's father, and friends. The casting call mentions upcoming special events and appearances at the resort.
So I was like, well, where's Maylin? And then I realized, Maylin's probably going to be
She's
in
going to
red
be in her panda
form, so you don't need to have somebody who looks like that.
Where's her mother, though?
That was another question.
Yeah.
Now, where do you think this might show up?
For sure, this is going to be in DCA.
Like San Francisco area?
It could be San Francisco area. It could be just on Pixar Pier, but that's where I'm thinking this is going to be. Is that kind of like back half of the park? Well, I don't think it's going to be San Francisco.
Do you think they could do
Baymax is way too popular
with the Four Town people? Do you think they could use that stage in Hollywoodland and do like a little stage show or something?
What? Yes, they could. Yes, they could.
Because that might be fun.
They could, yeah. That could be really cool. I can't think of anything else where they have assembled all of the main characters from the movie to be in the parks.
Right.
So you might be onto something there, that this might be some sort of I don't like show, as in show like stage show.
Like the Disney Junior show or something like that.
Or like something maybe that happens on the a dance party at the Tomorrowland.
Oh.
Terrace stage there. I don't think it'd take over like Mickey and the Magical Fantasyland Theater, that's what it's called. I don't think this would be something to take over the Fantasyland Theater necessarily, or the Hyperion, because I feel like both of those things are more broad, more musical Broadway kind of style shows, not just like a fun little thing.
I wish they'd find something permanent to go in the Hyperion.
Yeah, I wish so too. Because this casting call was more for lookalikes and not when we were looking at the casting announcement for what turned out to be Rogers the musical, it was saying things like, "Oh, we need this person would be a soprano," or they talked about singing ranges too. So I'm curious.
Well, Magic Happens is ending its run next month before the Christmas Fantasy Parade premieres in November. Sunday, October 15th will be the last day of performances of the popular parade, leaving a couple of weeks between parades. Well, maybe more than a couple weeks. The Christmas Fantasy Parade kicks off on November 11th.
This is kind of interesting to me that there's such a gap in between the two, but maybe...
It's a month. Know. It's 4 weeks.
Yeah. This is me spitballing. This is not Disney information. This is just Teresa. I wonder if there's not if some of the parade performers in Magic Happens also are going to be in the Christmas Fantasy Parade, so they need time to rehearse. Because otherwise, why would you just not have a parade at all? I bet you it's a lot of the same performers, and maybe I don't remember who all the characters are in the Christmas Fantasy Parade. Because I've seen it, but I just don't. Anastasia is in it. I remember that much. But yeah, so I wonder if they share performers and dancers and such.
That's a good idea. I wonder if that would be better for that cast too, because instead of laying them off for the couple months around Christmas just to hire them back in the spring.
We're hoping that Magic Happens returns in the spring, because it's a very popular parade. It's gorgeous. The music is so fun. So I am going to be sad that it is going to be leaving, but I am also selfishly glad that we get to be there before, to see it one last time before it goes.
I kind of wish they would keep it during the day. I mean, I guess the Christmas Fantasy Parade also goes during the day. Yeah,
they go during the day too.
Oh well.
Move it to DCA maybe. I don't know. Give DCA a parade. The new Avengers Vault shop in Avengers Campus opened this week. The new shop is not very large, but it features some exciting props from the movies. Captain America's shield, Iron Man's arc reactor, and Loki's TVA badge and time stick can all be seen on display.
Yeah, so this shop, I mentioned to Teresa, I thought this was funny. This is my quick little negative jab at this. I feel like this took a really long time for them to put in, and then looking at the space, I'm like, what took this long? But then it dawned on me that, well, you had a good point, which I'll let you make, but then the other point I had was, maybe there wasn't electrical and all of that ran over where they needed it, so that takes a lot of time.
An empty space.
What was the point you made?
My thought was this is going to be... Right, you're going to exit through the gift shop of whenever this big new attraction gets finished. So I feel like there's probably a lot more planning involved to make sure that the store was built within the space it needed to be within and not going to hinder on the attraction plans. Because they have, I'm pretty sure, okay, now that I'm saying this like for the podcast, I'm like 95% sure that it's been released that this is going to be the gift shop. Like this gift shop is what you're going to be. That was already in the plan that you would exit through the gift shop for this attraction. So I feel like making sure they're within the correct space was a way bigger deal than just filling a space with a shop.
Yeah. And obviously this place is way more compact than the superstore that was in the giant whatever. But it does seem like it has quite a bit of merchandise and stuff in here. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that other space. I mean, the shop looks really nice. It's just... It's smaller than I thought it would be for some reason, and it took a long time for what it is. I don't know what I expected. Well, the new villas at the Disneyland Hotel are now present on the maps around the hotel area. Some of the grounds have also been revealed with the construction walls being removed. The new pool area can be seen at a distance by guests who are interested.
I'm really excited. The opening day is quickly approaching. I'm hoping that we're not DVC members, but I'm hoping that maybe since it'll still be quite new when we get there, that we might be able to peek in at least the lobby to kind of see this space and check out that beautiful mural. But it looks really fun. The last time, so when Vern and I got married at the Disneyland Hotel, this was very much just a construction zone. And the last couple of times that we've gone over there and looked, it's been very much a construction zone. Through places like Mice Chat, we have watched this kind of come together and take shape. So I'm very excited and very interested just to go see it in person now that it's completed, to see kind of how it ties in with the rest of the hotel area. I'm
just excited to see some of the stuff that they have here, like the new pool areas and stuff, which I don't think we'll be able to use because it's only for the villa folks. But the area... It looks nice. I actually think it fits in better than I expected it to in a weird way.
Sure.
And they actually kept a lot of like grass area and stuff, which I think is always kind of important. So
yes, I'm
excited to see, because I assume it's going to be like the other DVC things where you might be able to walk into the lobby at least. And I'd be interested to see what that kind of looks like. But, it's nice. It's a nice kind of modern looking building, and it's ready for people. I'm excited to see when people actually start staying in it.
Well, Run Disney returns to the Disneyland Resort this January, and there are some new details. The design of the medals that runners will get after completing a race were shown off on the Disney Parks blog. The overall theme is mid-century modern, with the 5K medal having a boomerang design with Sleeping Beauty Castle, a palm tree, and Pluto running on it. The 10K medal has Donald and Daisy running with the Carthay Circle Theater and Sleeping Beauty Castle in the background. And the half marathon medal has a golden Disneyland D with Mickey and Minnie running out of Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's gorgeous. Finally, the Dumbo Double Dare medal features Dumbo flying with a circus ring around the outside of the medal with Dumbo Double Dare written in Dumbo circus font.
My favorite of all of these is definitely the half marathon with the Disneyland D.
It looks like it could be a pin.
It does look like it could be a pin.
All of them actually look like they could be a pin. They're very beautiful.
And I'm thinking these things are going to be fairly large, knowing how large these type of things are. So I'm jealous of this half marathon one for sure. What does Vern know that Run Disney is coming back?
Vern does know that Run Disney is back in Disneyland, and he's very excited about it. He would be more excited if it was a marathon, because he's trying to, I think we've probably mentioned this, trying to complete and run a marathon in all 50 states. So Florida was actually the Walt Disney World Marathon for his Florida marathon. So he thought it'd be really cool if he could do a Disneyland marathon for his California race. However, we do not have a full marathon because we do not have as much space.
So he hasn't done anything in California yet?
Not yet. His California marathon is still open. He hasn't decided on which one to do yet.
Well, fans of Rogers the Musical can relive the experience as many times as they like with the debut of the cast album. The music can be found on all streaming platforms for your listening delight.
I'm curious about this. I'm trying, again, like you, this is going to be probably my negative thing. I'm curious, and not really negative, just more curiosity, I guess. How many people do you I would like to know the download numbers. how
Or
many,
how many stream it,
yeah,
yeah.
like how many people are really excited about this. Neither of us got to experience and see it in person, and there were people that really enjoyed it. So, but I don't know, like if seeing it versus just listening to the music gives you the same feel or not.
I still haven't had time to watch the YouTube video of it, so I still have no idea what this show is about. I mean, I know what it's about.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. It's different.
Is it got good music?
I don't think I would listen to it over and over again, but that's just me. But I also, as everyone knows, was not very excited that this is what they chose to reopen the Hyperion with.
I think I will say anytime Disney releases music from the parks, I'm going to be happy about it because I think that it'd be nice if all of the music from the parks was available somewhere.
I'm trying to think, has there like
Aladdin Music Spectacular had its soundtrack.
Okay.
I don't know about Frozen because I think it just used music from the movie, so I don't know if
they were live singers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean but it's the same songs.
Oh, sure.
So I don't know if they made a separate thing, although I guess you could say that about Aladdin as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like, there used to be able to buy the CD of like the Electrical Parade and Fantasmic and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and that's been harder to find now, but
You can download it though.
that's good.
DLWeekly announces the boarding of the Trivia Express, non-stop star speeder service to the moon of Endor. All passengers, please prepare for immediate boarding.
Welcome to Trivia Land. How are we feeling tonight? You were just at a big Disney event. You
We
got
were.
all sorts of Disney knowledge in your head now. You feeling full of Disney-ness?
I feel like we could answer some Marceline, Missouri questions.
Yes.
I don't know about whatever the listeners have in store for us.
Oh, well, there's only one listener-inspired question.
Okay.
The rest were brought up by me,
Oh, well,
and nothing is about Marceline.
well, I guess we'll
see.
see how it goes.
Okay, so your next trip is going to be for Oogie Boogie Bash.
Mhm.
And so I was thinking about that, and I found a listener question that was also about Halloween stuff. And
Nice.
so I got going into a rabbit hole. And so your first question tonight, what year was the first Halloween-themed event at Disneyland, and what was it called?
Halloween-themed event?
Event, not specifically a party, but an event.
I feel like we just talked about this in the
We
chat.
just talked about it in the chat, and it was way earlier than I would have thought.
Wasn't it like the late 50s or something? Early 60s?
Yeah, I feel like it
57?
was- I would.
58?
I was thinking 8 for some reason.
I'm going to say 1957. And do you want to know what it was?
Yes, please.
Ooh. Oh, wasn't it just like a parade?
A parade? And then are you saying 8?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1957 for me, 1958 for Teresa, and I will hop on her bandwagon of a parade.
All
I'll hop on my parade float.
57 and 58, and you think it was a parade?
Yeah.
Maybe it was 63. I don't know.
Are you sticking with 58?
I'm going to stick with it. 'Cause
Okay.
All right, final answers.
Yeah.
All right. Your second regular round question, inspired by listener Donna S. Oogie Boogie Bash had a predecessor by a different name. What was the name of this party, and what was the first year it began?
Oh, well, it was Mickey's Not So Scary?
Well, that's Disney World's.
Or was it
That was World.
Mickey's Halloween Party? It was Mickey's something. I never attended that. I only
Me either.
have attended Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, I
I
think,
think it's
I'm
not
gonna,
so scary.
Well, I'm going to say Mickey's Halloween Party. And then when did it start? Is it what you're asking?
Yes, what year did it first start?
I'm going to say 97. What are you going to say?
Hang on, I gotta think. I think it was last year. Haunted Mansion Holiday celebrated 20 years. Or was it the year before?
And Tag, to be clear, you said Halloween Party, 1997?
Mickey's Halloween Party.
Mickey's Halloween Party.
And I said 1997.
Okay. And Teresa, you said Not So Scary Party.
Yeah.
And you're
Mickey's
calculating
Not
the
So
year?
Scary Halloween Party.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't decided on a year yet.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say 2000.
Oh.
2000. Okay. Final answers.
Yep.
Final.
All right. The annual Halloween party went through a couple different names and locations through the years before finally settling in at DCA as Oogie Boogie Bash. What year did this happen?
2019 was the first Oogie Boogie Bash.
Was it really?
I was there.
But that was the first one?
That was the first time it was named Oogie Boogie Bash.
Oh. Well, I guess I will hop on that bandwagon.
Okay, 2019, final answers.
Yeah. It seems so recent.
Cripes. Now I'm like second guessing myself. I'm like, oh, was it 2018? No, I'm pretty sure it was.
And prior
the first one.
And prior to becoming Oogie Boogie Bash, can you name at least 2 of the other names that the Halloween party went by?
2 of the other names.
I mean, we already
Different
tried to
from-
answer Mickey's Halloween party or whatever.
So you're saying Mickey's Halloween party is one of them?
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'm gonna say not so. Boo Bash. The Boo Bash was one of them.
Was it?
I think so. Boo Bash and Not So Scary.
I'll hop on your Boo Bash bandwagon since I don't have a second option.
Any other guesses?
He's just doing Mickey's Halloween Party and Boo Bash.
All right, Mickey's Halloween party and Boo Bash. Final answers.
Yep. I don't feel very good about any of this.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident on the one.
And your bonus question tonight. For Oogie Boogie Bash, are guests allowed to dress as Disney characters, and are there any restrictions?
I think they can dress
Yes.
as Disney characters, but
Yes,
they can't
they
cover
can.
their face.
And there's like no, like your costume can't drag on the ground.
Yeah.
There's rules with like if there's weapons,
Yep.
like you can't have weapons. You'd have like maybe like a foam sword or something.
Yeah. But you can't have like a wooden sword or something.
Yeah. And this is a weird one, but you can't so like for Oogie Boogie Bash, it happens in DCA. But if you decide to be in Disneyland during the mix-in time, you can still be in your costume and be in Disneyland. But there's a weird rule that you can't take photos with other guests.
Oh, sure.
While in costume. I know that's Disneyland specific. I don't think that's specific to DCA though, since that's where the party's happening.
Sure. The only thing I always remember is that
No
you
masks.
can't wear a mask. I
Yeah.
know for sure.
No
that's
full
a
face
thing.
masks.
Yeah.
Final answer.
Yeah. So you couldn't be you couldn't wear a mask and
You
be
couldn't
Lock,
be like
Shocker Barrel.
yeah, or
whatever.
like yokai.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, listeners, how do you think they did? How did you do listening at home? Stick around until after the discussion topic, and we will all find out together.
Well, for this week's discussion topic, Tag and I are freshly back from a very, very wonderful visit to Marceline, Missouri, where we got to attend the Dreaming Tree Gala. It was magical, to say the least.
It was cool.
Just to kind of give you a little intro, we heard about this when we were in Marceline last year, and basically we're just told, yeah, we're gonna have this really great event, keep your eyes and ears open. So I was watching social media patiently, very impatient, waiting to hear when the dates were going to be, what it was going to all be about, all that sort of thing. So as soon as we heard what the dates were going to be, they announced earlier in the year, kind of a mark your calendars, more info to come. So I went out, I booked our Airbnb that we stayed at the last year because we enjoyed it and it was within walking distance. It was great. So I secured that. And then it felt like we waited for a long time to then find out what the weekend events all entailed. But the museum did put on 2 very, very large events this past year. In June, they had a D23 event, very similar to what we had experienced, where it was a day full of fun, followed by an evening on Walt's Farm with dinner and fireworks and presentations and all sorts of stuff. So the people of Marceline have been extra busy this year planning pretty large, amazing events.
So this event is made for raising funds for the Walt Disney Hometown Museum.
Did I say family?
I don't know.
I may have said family. Now
Well,
we're
the
saying that.
Walt Disney Hometown Museum in Marceline, Missouri. And we actually, I'm going to jump forward real quick because I think this is an important point to make, which is we actually sat at the gala with a couple who are from Marceline.
Yeah.
And they talked about how important the museum is to their town.
Yes.
Because it brings a lot of people to the town and it's great economically and all of that for it. and it really showcases the history of the town, which is wonderful.
And I thought that was really special to hear from locals, and they were younger locals too. So, they could have very easily been just annoyed with, the Disney people are always, taking over our town and whatever. No, but they're very happy, and they have a lot of pride with the history of their town, and that Walt is connected to their town, even though it was normal for them to attend Walt Disney Elementary School, and a lot of stuff that we find so fascinating and cool about Marceline was just their town. You can kind of, it's easy to take that stuff for granted when it's just part of your everyday, but it was really interesting. I would say that they were probably in their mid-20s, the couple that we spoke with.
Probably.
That was really, really cool.
On the other end of the spectrum, the first full day we were there, which was Saturday, before the event started, we walked over to the park, over to the museum, and we ran into another resident of Marceline, and she was walking her dog, and she's like, "Oh, I see you're visiting our town. I hope you're having a great time." So this is literally what this town is like.
Yes.
I told Teresa multiple times over the weekend, I said, if I could teach around here, I would move to Marceline. Marceline is a very nice little town, and I can't get over now being there twice and having such a great experience both times. It really is it's in the middle of nowhere, but man, it's a gem. So if you have the chance to visit, I would highly recommend it. So what did we do?
So on to the event. So Tag and I decided to splurge, and we opted to do the VIP event weekend. The VIP event unlocked 4 additional talks with 6 Disney people, a couple of authors and a couple of former Imagineers, as well as a current VIP tour guide. And so if you did not do the VIP stuff, that there is still tons of stuff to do, but since we had just recently explored Marceline, we felt we didn't necessarily need to spend a ton of time going through the museum again. We didn't have to go spend time to go check out the elementary school and the pool at the park and kind of, see all of the different history spots in the town.
If you want to hear about those, we have an episode back from last October you can go look up.
So we decided to opt for the bigger event, I guess would be what it is, because we were really interested to hear from all of these really amazing Disney people. Well, I think we were both pretty shocked, Tag and I, when we went in. So the first talk was on Friday night. When we went in, so if you want to listen back, it was episode 261, where we talk about our experience last year in Marceline, Missouri, and just going through the town and all the different spots you need to go check out and see, all that fun. But anyway, so we were I know I was shocked. I'm pretty sure Tag was pretty taken aback by this as well. We were VIPs because it was a very intimate group of people. And that group of people included just incredible, amazing Disney people. We met former Walt Disney World ambassadors. We sat in front of Disney legends. We sat next to former Disney Imagineers. There was these amazing, amazing Disney fans that just got to experience things that we would only in our wildest dreams be able to experience. So it was really, I really valued the time I really valued the talk, but I also really valued all of the people that we got to meet and chat with and hear little bits of their stories, because holy cow, it was quite an amazing group.
So one of the first people we got the pleasure of listening to speak was actually one of the master of ceremonies at the gala later on, Marcy Carricker Smothers, who had a book, which was 100 Disney Adventures of a Lifetime.
Yep, her newest book. I was very impressed because she started talking about her background a little bit before she talked about her Disney stuff. And funny enough, she is from the same county I grew up in California. Mm-hmm. She was on the radio, doing radio shows when I still lived there in the early 2000s. And she knows Guy Fieri, and she knows the Schultz family for Charles Schultz. Yeah.
So it was just really interesting that she had this whole kind of background. And I was like, I know all of this stuff she's talking about. She got to do a ton of cool experiences in her time getting some stuff together to come up with these 100 adventures, because Disney had her come up with this book to come up with 100 like kind of cool things you could do for the 100th, basically all these Disney experiences.
So it was Disney along with National Geographic.
Yes. And she laughed because one of the stories she had was how when National Geographic came into the Disney family and then they were working with her on this, the National Geographic people are not like Disney fan people, so they know their wheelhouse of
level.
stuff. Mm-hmm. But when it came to that, like, she was talking about how there had to have pins, and pin trading is a big deal, and they're like, what's that? And she talked about all these different things, and they're like, what even is that? So we were in great hands having this book written by her and picking up all these different things. The other thing she wanted to make sure was in this was not only stuff that is like once in a lifetime that like you need a ton of money from, but also like everyday things.
Yeah, so like there's things like 21 Royal in there, but then there's also things like pin trading, as Tag already mentioned. So it kind of does the entire spectrum of events that, things that you can do with Disney. It doesn't matter your budget or even your like level of love for all things Disney. So there was something in there for everyone. So it was just the one presentation that night. Oh, the other thing too, before we move on from Marcy, because this will come into play later. Marcy also wrote the book that I'm sure a lot of you have already heard if you don't own already, Eat Like Walt, which comes into play later because she actually helped with the menu for what we had for the gala. But that was, to me, fascinating. Eat Like Waltz, the other one is Walt's Disneyland. But she was also talking about the journey to create those books and all of the amazing people that she got to talk to and places she got to go to kind of really dive into the history. She was talking about how it was incredibly important for her when writing these that she only had firsthand stories. She tried really hard not to include secondhand stories. So it wasn't like, oh, well, Marty Sklar told Tony Baxter this. She wanted to hear it, from the people that experienced it. So that just is a treasure trove of knowledge in and of itself. Plus, you know what? No, I'm going to let Tag talk about this once we get to the dinner thing because he was real excited about a couple of things with that. But anyways, fantastic. Tag purchased the new 100 Adventures book. She was very generous and kind and did a signing for everybody that was there after. I was hoping, because she had me so sold on Walt's Disneyland and especially Eat Like Walt. So I was really hoping that I could purchase, though they were both sold out, spoiler alert, but I was hoping I could purchase them at the museum the next morning, but unfortunately, they had already sold out, so I did not get to purchase a book at the event and have her sign it, but I do still plan to purchase them because I'm really excited about both of them.
Well, Walt's Disneyland, I mean, you can buy your own copy, but I have a copy of it, so, because Teresa has a couple books that I also want to borrow, so we're going to kind of swap back.
Yeah, our libraries are ever expanding, so it's as much as we would like to own every single copy of every single book. There's only so much space, So
the next person that we saw a talk with was Sandy Baldwin, and oh my goodness, her presentation.
Hang on, before we get to that, I just need to say, there were so many incredible magical moments that happened throughout the weekend that were not things that were planned. It wasn't something that the museum did for people. It was just pure coincidence and pure happenstance. Before we went to the first presentation of the day, we went over to Ma Vic's to grab breakfast because that's the place you stop and you get breakfast for at
It's like
when
the
you're
only
in
place.
Marceline.
Yeah.
And it's like right up the block from where we were sitting or was staying. So perfect. So, and I wanted to get there early because we know it's a smaller dining area. It's a Saturday morning. So I figured it'd be, pretty poppin'. So we get there, we find this little quiet table kind of tucked around the corner. And then our friend, Matt Mason, who most of you may remember from being a former guest, he is the Nebraska state poet, but more importantly, he wrote this really amazing book called On Fantasy in Maine about Disneyland. It was Disneyland poetry. If you need to refresh your mind or if you have not listened to it yet, that was episode 231. But anyway, so he was there for the weekend. He was one of the people presenting throughout the weekend.
He was amazing, by the way, all weekend because we didn't know a lot of these people, but he did. And so it was really nice to have kind of an introduction through him to these folks because it's really intimidating being around some of these legendary people.
Yeah. And so he walks in. We're like, hey, Matt, come sit in our little quiet corner because it was our two top. There was this, and then two little table booth things in this little corner. So we're like, hey, Matt, come over, sit with us. And so he sat down. We were chit chatting, whatever. And then This was just like, my heart just burst. It was just so incredible. Then Tanya McKnight Norris and her friend walked into the restaurant.
And who is that?
Tanya McKnight Norris, who we will be talking about later because she was a presenter, is a former Disney Imagineer, but she worked on New Orleans Square and did a lot of the interior design for New Orleans Square. She worked with Waltz. Just really, really amazing. Very, very sweet, kind lady. But she comes in, and Matt had been talking with the gentleman that was with her. And so he saw Matt, and Matt's like, oh, come over and sit with us. So we sat and we had breakfast with Tanya. And then the people that sat in the remaining booth were people we had never met, but they overheard, somehow it got brought up that we have the podcast, and they overheard, oh, wait, you have a Disneyland podcast? So then they joined the conversation. They're pretty amazing, too, because they're going to Disneyland for the very first time ever in the next couple of months. And so they had a ton of questions. Older couple doing this really fun driving road trip. They've loved Disney forever. Like, they've loved Disney, just have never been to Disneyland. So it's a big,
This was their first Disney event.
Yeah, and this was their first Disney event, too. So it was this big deal to them. So they were super kind and amazing. So we jokingly referred to ourselves as what do we call it? The corner crew or something like that. We gave ourselves a nickname because we sat in that little restaurant, the 7 of us. We talked and just sat there probably for an hour and a half, I'd
Something
say.
like that.
It was
Until we had to get over to
incredible.
our presentation,
Absolutely incredible.
So now that you got on that for a while, Sandy Baldwin, and this was our first presenter for Saturday morning, and I did not realize how amazing of a presentation she was going to present to us. So she was she is currently a VIP tour guide since the 60s.
Yeah.
She is married to Bob Baldwin, who's a Disney marketing executive. She got to travel with her through her job and everything with Disney to go to Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris. She gives tours of Walt's apartment.
Yes.
She curated 2 heritage walls at Disneyland about the story of the VIP tour guide costumes. Well, her presentation was on the VIP tour guide costumes. Now, one of the most amazing things about this presentation is they asked us not to take video, not to take audio or pictures, because a lot of the photos that she showed have never been seen anywhere. Like the archives didn't have some of these photos and all of this. They do now or something like that.
Yeah,
but
a lot of these, it sounded like, were photos that she collected from people that she knew. And so they were, some of them, yes, were from the archives, but some of them were also people's personal photos of when they either visited Disneyland or worked at Disneyland or whatever. So it was really incredible.
I don't want to go into all the details. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights that I thought were particularly interesting about her talk. First of all, the fact that the first hosts were at Disneyland before the park opened.
Yeah.
And their original job was
Hostess.
Walt's friends. Yeah, hostess. Walt's friends wanted to come see the building of Disneyland. Well, they needed someone to escort them around. And there were these people. Mm-hmm. And then a bunch of other stuff happened. One of the first costumes for them was like a flight attendant costume, which I thought was interesting.
I didn't know that. I learned so much.
And she went through all the history of how it changed. I also didn't know that they had a winter and summer outfits that were different, and it changed a ton over the years. So the plaid outfit that we know today has actually only been around since 2007, which, what?
Yeah.
Like, I thought for sure that had been around forever.
Yeah, and so a lot of confusion that Sandy kind of addressed is she was referencing the VIP host and hostesses costumes specifically. The tour guides have had the kind of the plaid skirt with the riding cap and the crop. That's been around for much, much longer, but she was specifically referencing the VIP guides. But I was just like, she's going through this, and I was just, first of all, how she remembered and had all of these she knew all the different names of the different fabric, what the different dress style names were called. And it was just,
she knew what her next slide was before she went to it.
Yeah, her knowledge of all this stuff and the way that she was able to remember, like, what the different patterns of, like the fabric pattern was called. Like, oh, that's the whatever. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, it was just impressive, the amount of knowledge.
She started in the 60s, so I don't know how old she is, but she looks amazing for her age. And the fact that her mind is like a steel trap, amazing. I was shocked. And also,
like Tag, I did not realize. I don't even know how to describe. Like, I can't even try and pinpoint how many different costumes she showed us. That's how many times those cast members' costumes changed over the years.
Sometimes, like, it was only around for like a year or two.
Yeah, it would only be around for a season, kind of a thing. All sorts of different colors, different styles, different cuts, incredible. They were like in the beginning they had hats and gloves in addition to their dress, and then she kind of point out like, oh, do you see we've lost the gloves now? Like she pointed out different evolutions. They also didn't have name badges for quite a while that they wore either. And it was fascinating. I also didn't. The other thing too was males weren't allowed to be tour guide or the VIP guides right in the beginning either. It took a few. I should have taken notes during her presentation, but it took a few years before males were introduced and able to be VIP guides as well. Absolutely fascinating, though.
So we got a little postcard with her signature. It was really nice.
She was very sweet. Very
Who did we
kind.
see next?
Next up was our breakfast pal, Tanya McKnight Norris. But she, I guess, is currently she's gained a lot of buzz in the Disney community because she designed the famous purple wallpaper in the Haunted Mansion. However, yes, I know I'm a Haunted Mansion person, but I think it was so much cooler that she was the decorator to the Disneys, and she got to do things like help find antique decor for New Orleans Square. She helped with the design of Club 33. We were chatting with her. She helped with Blue Bayou. I mean, those are just such beautiful, beautiful areas of the park. Now, it was the first version of Club 33. Current version has been changed since she helped with the interior decorating, but just so, and the fact that she helped decorate the Disney's homes.
Mm-hmm. So, a couple things that I found really interesting about her. First of all, I found it amusing. So, Tanya lived in England for a while, and she kind of has that stiff upper lip British kind of personality to her, because that's what British people sometimes are like. And it was really funny because the beginning of her talk, she was talking about the purple wallpaper, the famous purple wallpaper, and she's like, yes, I did that, but I did so many more interesting things than that.
Yeah, so she kind of talked about this because she worked there, and she was like, it was, like when she worked there, it was quote unquote just a job because, and she, I mean, not to like belittle what it was, but it wasn't until, more current day that we realized what a big thing it was. And even she realized like, wow, like these people, like I thought these people were amazing and they were just my coworkers, but now I understand like the legacy and all that stuff. But I got the feeling because the wallpaper for the Haunted Mansion has come out that surfaced more recently. And I think she's like, I think there's other people, I'm sure there's other people that are famous for designing, like Tony Baxter might have like, how many questions has he been asked about Big Thunder Mountain?
Sure.
Or Bob Gurr, how many times has he been asked the same questions about Autopia? I'm sure there gets to be a point that they've answered the same question.
Well, but I just got the fact that she was like, of all the things I've worked on, why is like this the thing that's going to be like the top of my billing all the time?
Yeah.
She laughed and made a joke
done
that
a lot of
she doesn't even
things.
like purple.
Yeah.
But like purple worked with that design or something. Anyway, we were able to talk to her during the gala a little bit later, and I asked her I had asked her a question when she had her talk, but I asked a follow-up question when we saw her later. I said, what is something that you are the most proud of or you would rather have been like known for? And she said Club 33 and the interior decoration of New Orleans Square stuff.
Yeah.
So she has a ton of pride for that. She also had this great story that I want to make sure that, I mean, I'm not going to tell it as well as she did, but she was one of a few people that got to travel with Walt to New Orleans to do this stuff. But also, I did not know this actually, she said Walt Disney set foot on Disney World property twice, and she was there one of those times. Because all the other times he visited, he flew over because he didn't want to make a big deal that like he was there. But she said she was there because they flew to New Orleans, from New Orleans to Florida, and then they ended up going to New York and then home.
In Walt's plane, too. So she got to travel in Walt's plane as well.
So that's so cool that she got to kind of have this. And she had I'm not going to tell the funny story because, like, people should listen to her tell it, but she had a couple funny stories about her and Walt and stuff, too. So she was wonderful.
Yeah. I would love to hear more, like Tag said, about her work on on like the New Orleans squares, just because they're just so, it's just beautiful. And like you can tell a lot of care has gone into those areas, because in different areas of the park too, there's just so many different layers of stuff to look at, that once you kind of get to the point where it's not just your tunnel vision by the attractions and you take the time to just sit there and really absorb your surroundings, it's incredible. Like, it's just incredible the amount of detail and care that the Imagineers put into it. So I can understand why she's very proud of those things, because it's definitely something to be proud of. The other thing that she did that I really enjoy is when people in her position that kind of have the spotlight on her make sure to talk about other people too, because she would say stuff like, she would talk about folks that we've heard of, like Marty Sklar, but then she'd also talk about people that, you know, maybe people haven't heard of, and she would kind of say things like, oh, well, you know, when I was working with so and so, now that's someone that maybe you haven't heard of, but you should, and I'll tell you why they were so amazing and great and all that sort of thing. It was amazing. I was very glad that we got to be there for her presentation, and that we got to have some extra magical moments with her throughout the weekend as well.
Speaking of which, after her talk, we had one of the tours from the museum that was going to tour little sections of Marceline, and guess who ended up having to be on our tour was Tanya McKnight Norris. She was there with her friend and went on the tour with us, and it was delightful. Also, quick side note, there's a barbecue place there. We had lunch there. It was super inexpensive.
It was fantastic.
Huge portions. Was amazing. The tour we had was put on by the museum, and one of the people, the person who was our tour guide, runs a local hair salon there, and she was lovely.
Her name was Lindsay, so shout out to you, Lindsay, if you're listening, because we had so much fun on your tour. Yes, we are big Disney fans, but I learned a lot. Like, I did not know. She mentioned that Walt was held back a year for schooling. I did not know that. That was a new Walt fact that I learned. Yep, that was a new Walt fact that I learned that day. We also learned about a lot of the history of Marceline and buildings and stuff, which was very, very interesting as well. But tons of fun facts.
She also took a lovely photo of us sitting on a bench overlooking the little pond in the E.P. Ripley Park, which was amazing. We ended up having a little, what is the thing called?
Oh, a Dusty Miller Sunday.
At Ma Vic's as the end of the tour. And then we headed back on over to our next talk, which was
The Women of Walt Disney Imagineering. Now, I was crazy excited about this because one of the things that we do with our patrons, our supporters, is we have, I think it's quarterly, we try to do a book club. And one of the recent books that we actually read for our DL Weekly patron book club was The Women of Walt Disney Imagineering. So this was a really interesting read. It was, I believe it was 12 retired Imagineers. They did have like criteria that it was either 20 or 30. You had to have worked at the company for either 20 or 30 years to be one of the people invited to contribute to this book. So we got to hear from Imagineers Peggy Ferris, Eli Erlandson, and Paula Dinkle. And it was really interesting to me because they all had fascinating stories. I wish we had more than an hour to like talk with them, because they talked about creating of the book, and then they each briefly got to talk about what they did in Imagineering and in Disney. Because actually Peggy started out, coincidentally, she started on Storybook Land Canal Boats with Sandy, who was the person that did our wonderful talk about the VIP host and hostess costumes. So that was really interesting. So she kind of talked about her transition from the parks into Imagineering, and then talked about, quickly was able to talk about some of the projects that she helped on. Eli is an architect, and so she was talking about the different designs and stuff that she got to work on. And Paula was a lighting engineer, which is amazing because lighting is one of those things that
I love the lighting.
It's there and it makes a difference, but nobody probably realizes nor appreciates that it's there. You know what I mean? It's something that it's very, but it's something that like a lot of people kind of, I guess, take for granted. So, and she worked a lot with Kim Irvine.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating.
They were great. The only downside to this talk was each of these talks were about an hour, and these three women had so much to say that each of them got 2 times to talk, basically, and they could have probably talked for hours.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how Disney people are. We want to sit around and talk for hours. But they had to wrap it up because they had to do some book signings And then we had to all get over to the Disney family farm where the gala was taking place that night. So we went back to the room. We got changed. Teresa got changed into a nice outfit. I realized I forgot my dress shirt. So I ended up going over there in a t-shirt and looking silly because there was only like 3 people who didn't like dress formally, even though there was no dress code. A lot of people dressed in like the speakeasy kind of 20s look, flappers.
Yes, a lot of people had a lot of fun with it, and like I like saw them, I'm like, ooh, we should have like it didn't even cross my mind to kind of go that route, but now we know. Now we know that you can have a lot of fun with it too. You don't, because we were kind of concerned, like, oh, gala, like, do we need to wear like
tuxedos
and like ball gown? You know, like how like what level of fancy?
It wasn't
is
that
this?
bad.
It wasn't. No, and we talked with some of the people that worked at the museum. They're like, oh no, we intentionally didn't have a dress code. So if people wanted to have fun, they could, or if people wanted to be comfortable and casual, they could also do that too. So. Right. I totally understand where they were coming from, but it was fabulous. So first we got there about 5:00. Again, this is the Walt Disney Family Farm. It is privately owned, so we did not go into the house at all, but this was out kind of in the field, right in the yard or the field next to the house. They have these big, huge space, big tents. There was a speakeasy, which like you had to knock on the door and say the secret password to be let into the speakeasy. The speakeasy was, I like the detail and the time these people of Marceline put into this stuff was just astonishing to me.
It was really cool.
They had tons of really gorgeous furniture set up into kind of like little groupings, so you could sit and relax and like have casual conversation with people in the speakeasy. There was a bar. They had auction items there that they were auctioning off to raise money for the museum. It was just amazing.
Yeah, there was a lot of cool auction items on there. So we hung out for a little while. We kind of checked in with Matt Mason again because he was there. Teresa met up quickly with her new BFFs from the Mouse Meet.
Yes, I was really excited. Michael Vargo and his wife were both there, and they attended some of the presentations throughout Friday night and Saturday as well. So we got
and
a
who
chance
are they again,
to,
just in case?
So Michael Vargo he's I want to say a VP level with Disney, but the things that he gets to be in charge of, what I think is super, super cool, is D23, as well as he's involved with the Walt Disney Archives as well. So very, very cool. Very, very kind people.
Super down to
so
earth.
kind. And so we were very lucky and very fortunate to get to chat with them for quite a while. We talked expo stuff because, right, Destination D23 was just last weekend.
Literally, he just came from it.
Yeah, like they came from Florida for this event. So we got to chat with him about how like the expo stuff, and he shared some things that we're not sure if we're allowed. We're not gonna, but we got to talk about it, and we got to kind of talk through some things with him, tell him like, you know, how we're excited about things from the fan perspective and all that sort of stuff. But really, really incredible. Plus we just talked about like normal stuff, like what a pain it is for flights right now and how expensive they are and all, you know, just kind of generic stuff too. It wasn't all Disney specific and D23 specific, but super kind, very, very nice people.
So right before the dinner at 6:30, one of the most amazing things happened. We had this amazing sunset.
We did.
And
it was gorgeous.
What was amazing was the sun was setting right behind Walt's barn that's on the property. And I would say a good chunk of people noticed this and were out there taking photos. We saw our friend Evan that we had on DL Weekly before. Let me quickly figure out what episode he was on, because he was there actually with his friends doing a bachelor party. So episodes 190 and 191 he was on, and he had an amazing picture on his Instagram from the sunset of him standing in front of him. And Teresa was like, why didn't we get a picture of us in front of the sunset?
We were too busy taking pictures of the sunset, but Evan was the genius who took a picture with the sunset. So I'm like, oh, it was gorgeous. I also want to just give a shout out too, because we met this really amazing guy. His name is Christopher, and he was kind of one of the hosts for the weekend. So he did a lot of the introducing of who was speaking and did a little Q&A with folks as well. Fantastic guy. But he was one of the first people we met when we pulled into Marceline, because he pulled in next to us, and we kind of did the thing where I looked over and saw he was wearing a Disney shirt, and I looked at Tag and said, oh, look, it's our people. Then he came out Christopher came out of his car, saw that Tag was wearing a Walt Disney Imagineering shirt, and he's like, oh, hey, like kind of the same thing, like Disney people. So we were very excited. But he was a Disneyland ambassador for Walt Disney World, and he currently is on the board for the Walt Disney Hometown Museum. So very, very, very kind, very awesome person. So shout out to him because we really enjoyed meeting him. We also got to spend some time chatting with Kay from the museum, as well as meeting Sumner, who also works at the museum. Both of them super kind, super generous.
Put on such a great event.
Put on like such a wonderful, wonderful, fun event. So we were very fortunate to be able to chat with them during a very busy weekend while they were, hosting all of us crazed Disney people.
Yeah. So for the Eat Like Walt dinner, Marcy Carricker Smothers was back because she wrote the book Eat Like Walt. And so this dinner was inspired by that. So the first thing that came through was they had a Scotch Mist, which apparently was a drink that Walt had or liked or something. Yeah. Nobody that I saw enjoyed this drink.
It was a very, very strong drink. I tried it just because I was curious. But Marcy said, think of it like an adult slushy or like an adult snow cone, because basically it was crushed ice with booze. That's exactly what it was. So it was straight
with a little bit of orange.
Yep, straight. It was straight Scotch over. So it was Scotch with ice.
Yeah.
So I am not a big flavored alcohol person.
I didn't get one because I knew.
Yep, I like sweeter things, but I just needed to try it. I needed to know. So I'm glad that I was able to experience. I do think like Vern would have enjoyed it.
Oh sure.
Because he enjoys drinking like scotches and bourbons and that sort of thing. So that's more his thing to sip on liquor, not so much my thing.
And then the main plate of food was...
Well, before that, we also had a bread service, and it was a very unique bread service. So we skip back again. With the Scotch Mist, it was really very sweet and very touching. We got to all do together toast to Walt with our drink. So I thought that was very fun. And then before dinner, we had a bread service. Again, a very special bread service. It actually, I was a little confused at first because the servers that were the fantastic people of Marceline that were volunteering to bring food out for us brought everybody these black bags. And I was like, what is this? And they said they have little stickers on there, and it said there was a sticker with the someone with a photo of someone, and then on the back the seal said for Flora. So the photo on the front was Flora, who was Walt Disney's mother. But this bread service was interesting. They gave a little story along with it. I'll kind of consolidate the story. Basically, Flora was really well known for her butter that she made. And Walt's father kind of said, oh, you know what? Butter's taking off. We're not going to eat butter here. All the butter your mom makes is going to be sold. Sorry, boys. But Flora was looking out for her boys, and so she would have them butter their bread, flip the bread over, and pretend like the butter wasn't there so that their dad wouldn't know. So part of this toast to Flora was we were all to butter our bread, flip the bread over, toast to Tora, and eat the bread upside down. So I thought that was really, really fun.
So at the beginning of the dinner service, Matt Mason came up and to kind of start off dinner, read a poem about the Dreaming Tree and Walt at the farm in Marceline.
Yeah. And he actually shared that he wrote the poem down at the barn. So he wrote the poem while on a visit to Marceline. Beautiful poem. Very, very fun. But that was really special.
Yeah.
Really
so
special.
They brought out food. We had fried chicken. Fufu's green beans. Now, Fufu was somebody who worked for the Disney family and was kind of their, I don't want to say maid, but it was kind of like she cooked for them.
She cooked. I think she also helped with taking care of the kids.
Yeah. So these were green beans that were a recipe of hers with corn on the cob, and then we had mashed potatoes and gravy. And I actually thought this was pretty good, especially for something feeding so many people. The fried chicken was huge.
It was a very large fried portion. Chicken.
The green beans were great. The corn on the cob, we're from the Midwest, so the corn on the cob, from Wisconsin, the corn on the cob
it wasn't sweet corn.
Wasn't sweet corn. Mashed potatoes and gravy I thought were amazing. I thought those two things were great, interesting. I also learned about Teresa that she's not a huge gravy person, which I did not know. And then for the dessert, they brought out Flora's apple pie, and I honestly think this is the best apple pie I've ever had in my life. I loved it. It wasn't even warm. It didn't even have ice cream on the side, which is normally how I like to have it, but it was amazing.
It had a slice of cheese on it because that was how Walt enjoyed his apple pie, was with a slice of cheese. And I thought it was so cute. It was cheddar cheese, and they had it cut out in the shape of a Mickey. So we had a little Mickey on our pie.
The other thing that I forgot to mention is when they were talking about the different aspects of the food, they did play a couple of clips of Walt talking about these things. The apple pie, talking about the apples that were grown in the area, grown in the farm and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool to hear Walt talk about something that wasn't a Disney movie or the Disney company or whatever.
Sharing memories of his childhood.
Yeah. Then I'll let you introduce who the last speaker was.
So the main speaker for the event was Disney legend Floyd Norman, who is just a treasure. I mean, just a treasure. He like worked on so many things. I didn't realize how like I knew he worked there with animation for a while, but we learned so many things. The first thing he worked on at the studio was Cinderella. So he spoke about Cinderella. He talked about his time there. And then he also kind of gave us a little insight. It was interesting. They went basically, Cinderella is a gorgeous movie. It took them a year just to do one sequence, which was Briar Rose in the forest meeting the prince for the first time with all the little animals. It took them a year to animate and to create that scene. So long story short, Sleeping Beauty was gorgeous, but it went very over budget. Roy actually went to Walt and said, we cannot keep doing this is not sustainable. You're not going to have very many movies because we're not going to be a studio because we're going to run out of money if we keep it this way. So the following film was 101 Dalmatians. And so very different animating style, and it's a little looser, and actually they used a Xerox machine to kind of help pump and create more of the sketches. So I thought, anyways, it was very, very fascinating, but amazing, just really amazing, very kind, every person that we talked to, all of these people that were just like in awe of, like Tanya and Marcy and everyone that presented there, and even the people that weren't presenters that were pretty amazing people based on either their experiences or what they do. Everybody was so kind and so humble. Like Floyd just, he's like, he really enjoyed his work, and he doesn't see it like, he's not looking at it like we look at it, like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. It was just really,
he said in his presentation, and I think a couple of the other people did in their presentation, that like for them this was like their day job. They just like showed up and did what they were supposed to do. And he wanted to, like, he knew from a very young age that he wanted to be an animator, and so this was something that work for Disney. So this was something that he really put his mind to and made happen. And he was talking about how he had such a great support system in his family and with specifically his grandmother. So it was just like a lot of these people just knew that this was their passion and what they wanted to do. So they really didn't take a day for granted. He was talking about how Walt only had the best. And that was one of the reasons he wanted to work there, was because he wanted to be one of the best. So he said it was very demanding at times, but also incredibly rewarding. Yeah. After Floyd Norman's talk, they did a Kiss Goodnight fireworks, which is a nice little fireworks show that was over a little pond that's on the property there, and it was really great. They had some good music and stuff that went along with it. After that, we actually popped back in, and we actually got to talk with Floyd for a couple minutes. He would have stayed, I think, and talked all night with us. His wife came over because everything was wrapping up, and his wife came over and was like, "Come on, Floyd."
It was getting late at that point, so I totally understand. But
we got to say goodbye to everybody. We got to thank Kay and Sumner with the Hometown Museum for being putting on an amazing event.
Yes.
They raised a ton of money, it sounded like, through the auction and just through the event itself.
Which is great, is really amazing.
Yeah, it was a great event. Apparently, they do these things every couple years there.
Yep, every other year.
Yeah, so in a couple years, if you guys want to go to something like this, keep an eye out on the Walt Disney Hometown Museum website, because they will probably announce something like this in a couple years if you want to go to it. But the people there are great. if you want to support the Walt Disney Hometown Museum, we highly recommend go to their website. You can support them. If you want something out of it, you can order. They have bricks, kind of like at Disneyland, that you can order and put your name right in front of the museum.
Yeah, you can do just a regular donation, or if you kind of want to leave your mark in Marceline, you can also sponsor a brick. Yeah. So very, very cool. But again, huge shout out to not only everybody that we met and were privileged to speak with throughout the weekend, but also to the people of Marceline as well as the Walt Disney Hometown Museum. Incredible event. It was jam-packed full of fun and Disney magic, and it, like, even though it was like a day and a half worth of stuff, it felt like it flew by, and it felt like it went by in no time at all, but it also felt like a much longer time period than it was because there was just so much awesomeness.
100%.
But I want to say, not packed in too much that it was uncomfortable. Like we felt like we had to rush from thing to thing. It was perfect. Everything was timed perfectly.
They scheduled everything amazingly. The only thing I would say if I was going to change anything was I would have given more time to the 3 women of Imagineering because there was 3 of them.
Yeah.
But otherwise...
But they left us wanting more.
Yeah. The spacing between the... Like, it was amazing.
It was great.
Yeah, that was our weekend at the Dreaming Tree Gala in Marceline, Missouri.
Looks like we're coming in for a landing, gang. But please stay listening until trivia comes to a stop. And then you can walk to the nearest exit. Thanks for listening to the 8th wonder of the world, DLWeekly.
Welcome back to Trivia Land, where we're going to find out the correct answers to tonight's trivia and find out how many of them Tag and Teresa got. How do you two feel?
Well, since you just said the correct answers, I'm thinking that we didn't do great. And I just don't feel like we did great.
No, this was a tough trivia.
You know, honestly, you did well.
Oh.
I'm seeing some green on the iPad over here. So this is not a bad night for you. Should we get right into it?
Yes.
All right. You're first inspired by your upcoming trip and me looking at a listener question tonight. What year was the first Halloween-themed event at Disneyland, and what was it called? You answered with...
Oh, what was it called? I thought you asked what it was.
No, I said what was it called.
Oh, well. I thought you were asking what it was. That's why we said parade.
You had asked what it was, too. That's why I said parade as well. But anyway, okay.
Would you like to change your answer?
I don't really have a good answer.
I mean, you got that it was a parade.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay, so what's the answer?
You said 1957 or 1958, and you said it was a parade.
Yep.
The correct answer that I was looking for was 1959.
Oh, so close.
And the event was called Pumpkins on Parade.
Pumpkins on Parade.
There's not much historical evidence of this event that can be found, but there are pictures from Holidayland of kids lined up ready to go on parade in their costumes.
Huh.
Well, I think there used to be something with, like, carving, too. Like, you would carve your pumpkin and bring it to the park.
Huh.
Maybe that wasn't that first year, but...
Your second question, inspired by listener Donna S. Oogie Boogie Bash had a predecessor by a different name. What was the name of this party, and what year did it begin? Tag said Mickey's Halloween Party in 1997. And Teresa said Mickey's Not So Scary Party in the year 2000. Teresa, the Not So Scary Party did come out the same year as the correct answer I was looking for. However, that was Disney World.
Got it.
And the correct answer that I was looking for was in 1995.
Oh.
And it was Mickey's Halloween Treat.
No party. Apparently it wasn't a party for a few years.
Dang.
Very close, Tag.
That's all right.
Your third regular round question.
You're doing terribly.
The annual Halloween party went through a couple different names and locations through the years before finally settling in at DCA as Oogie Boogie Bash. What year did this happen? Teresa immediately said 2019, and Tag was ready to go along with that. The correct answer that I was looking for was 2019.
Yes.
Good job.
Goodness.
Good job, Teresa.
We need some right answers. That might be the only one, but that's okay.
You know, if you wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have guessed 2019. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And your fourth and final regular round question. Prior to becoming Oogie Boogie Bash, can you name at least 2 of the other names that the Halloween party went by? You said Mickey's Halloween Party and Boo Bash. Correct answers I would have accepted. From 1995 to 1996, the Halloween party was known as Mickey's Halloween Treat. From 2005 to 2007, it was Mickey's Halloween Party. Credit there.
Oh, good job, Tig.
2008 to 2009 brought in Mickey's Trick or Treat Party. And then later came the Oogie Boogie Bash.
Oh. Boo Bash would have been a great name.
And your bonus question tonight. Are guests allowed to dress as Disney characters, and are there any restrictions? Both of you knowing that, yes, guests are allowed to dress as Disney characters, and yes, there are restrictions. Directly from the Oogie Boogie Bash website, the first rule, all guests may dress as their favorite character, but may not pose for pictures or sign autographs for other guests. Rule number 2, costumes must be family-friendly and may not be obstructive, offensive, objectionable, or violent. And then all the rest of the rules are a whole bunch of things about how you can't potentially create a weapon, you can't drag on the ground, don't create anything that might potentially hurt anybody, yatada, yatada, yatada.
So, how did you score us total for this time?
I gave you 2019 Oogie Boogie Bash full credit, and bonus question full credit, and half credit for Halloween, Mickey's Halloween Party of the 2 names.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So not 0.
The
so
others, you were so close, but so far away.
Yep. As sometimes will happen.
And listeners, do you think I was too hard on them? Should I have given them better points? Do you have really good questions that you'd like to hear asked? Well, if you've got that perfect question that you'd like to send in and hear us ask it live on the air, feel free to send that in at trivia@dlweekly.net.
We will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
Until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
And a shout out and a big thank you to our editor, Sidel.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us. And we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.